The warnings were clear. The stars shimmered quietly as the Imperial fleet moved across Sector 9. Dozens of warships flew in perfect formation, their dark hulls blocking out the distant suns. At the center of it all, the Imperial command ship glowed, with power. Inside, Grand Marshal Dorek stood on the bridge, arms folded, eyes locked on a small blue planet on the screen. "Earth," he said with a grin. "So this is the place everyone fears?" His officers stayed silent. Most had heard the stories. Small trading ships vanished near Earth's orbit. Scout drones were never seen again. Even a bounty fleet sent 2 years ago had gone missing without a single signal. A junior officer cleared his throat. "Sir, some alien reports claim Earth is dangerous. A trap, they said. Deadly in ways we don't understand." Dorek laughed. What could those backward creatures possibly do? They barely have a presence in the stars. No colonies, no fleets. Just this single planet. And still, the galaxy fears them? I don't believe it. In a nearby system, an old trader named Mako sat inside his rusty ship watching from far away. He had seen the warnings on ancient communication channels. Messages from broken ships barely holding signal, screaming in panic. "Do not go to Earth!" Mako zoomed in on the Empire's ships and shook his head. "Fools," he muttered. "They were warned. Decades ago, before the Empire expanded. This far, Earth was marked as no entry by the Galactic Council. At first, everyone thought it was a mistake. A quiet little planet near a yellow sun? Why avoid it? But then came the silence. Any ship that entered the space around Earth either vanished or returned different. A small crew once made it back, whispering things about strange technology, about something ancient hidden below the planet's surface. Something that saw through ships, minds, and lies. The Council didn't question it. They sealed the records, labeled the area red level danger, and spread the word. Stay away from Earth. But the Empire never listened to warnings. They believed in power, and now they had arrived, with full force. Dorek turned to his main science. "Officer, prepare landing teams. I want samples, artifacts, maybe even some locals for study." "Yes, sir," the officer replied. The fleet entered orbit. Earth rotated slowly below them. Peaceful, quiet. Then, without warning, every ship's screen turned black. Lights flickered, control panels sparked, voices on the intercom screamed, "Systems failing, external control breach." A strange signal pulsed through the fleet, not a message, a sound, deep, low, like a hum from the center of the planet, a vibration that touched the bones of every crew member. Dorek shouted, "What is this? Report." No one answered. Outside, a single beam of light shot from Earth's surface. It was thin, almost invisible, but it pierced through the Empire's second-largest cruiser like it was made of paper. The ship exploded into a silent fireball in the vacuum of space. Panic broke across the fleet. "They're targeting us. Shields down. Something's hacking the command network." Dorek clenched his fists. "Pull back now!" But it was too late. All across the fleet, invisible forces struck with perfect aim. Ships began to spin, break apart, or vanish in flashes of blinding light. Some crew members floated into space, frozen in fear before the cold took them. Back, in his tiny ship, Mako watched it all unfold. He whispered, "Earth isn't a trap. Earth is the hunter." The silence between stars, the battlefield above Earth, had turned into a graveyard. Floating wreckage drifted slowly through space, twisted metal, burning pieces of once mighty ships, and broken bodies trapped in frozen stillness. The Empire's great fleet, once proud and feared across galaxies, had been shattered in minutes. Inside the damaged bridge of the Imperial command ship, Dorek struggled to stay on his feet. Sparks flew from ruined control panels. Smoke filled the air. The once smooth floor was cracked and tilted. "Emergency systems, online now," he shouted. A young officer, face bleeding from a head wound, crawled to the backup console. "Power is unstable. We've lost connection with every other ship. Communications are jammed by something." Doric's voice was a growl. Find me answers. What hit us? Was it Earth's defense system? Some kind of stealth fleet? No, sir, the officer said quietly. We saw no movement, no launches, no visible weapons. It's like the planet itself attacked. The words chilled the bridge. Meanwhile, far below, Earth remained calm. Blue oceans, green lands, thick clouds slowly moving across the surface. There were no visible cities, no launch trails, no satellites. It was as if nothing had changed. But something had. Back in his trader ship, Mako watched the horror through his old scanners. He leaned back in his seat and whispered, "That's how Earth fights. No warnings, no speeches, just silence, then destruction." He reached for the emergency broadcast button and began recording a message to all nearby systems. To anyone who hears this, do not go near Earth. It's not just dangerous. It watches. The Empire thought it was just another target. Now they're gone. He paused. There is something on that planet. Something not meant to be understood. Back in the remains of the Imperial ship, Doric activated a secure capsule, a dark gray cube hidden beneath the bridge floor. It was a last resort device used only when all hope was lost. Inside the capsule were old reports. Not from the Empire, not from any government. These were personal logs collected secretly, stories of what explorers had seen before they vanished near Earth. One recording began to play, a woman's voice shaky and afraid. We landed on Earth's moon. At first it was fine, no signs of life, but then we heard sounds, whispers. They weren't in our ears, they were inside our thoughts. They knew who we were, what we had done. They weren't machines or aliens. It was the planet itself. It thinks. It remembers. Recording ended. Doric stared at the screen, breath heavy. The silence outside the ship felt like a weight pressing against his chest. This wasn't war, he said to himself. This was judgment. One of the last working officers spoke softly. Sir, what do we do now? Doric didn't answer. For the first time in his long military life, he had no plan. He looked out through the cracked window at Earth, still calm, still peaceful, and he felt fear. Earth's whisper. The command ship was barely holding together. Half its lights were dead and half its systems were offline. Life support was running on backup batteries. Smoke hung in the air like a ghost, and the crew moved slowly, careful with every breath. Doric sat in the command chair, staring at the Earth below. His uniform was torn. His hand trembled slightly. He had fought in 30 campaigns. He had seen entire civilizations fall. But this was different. This planet doesn't fight like anything else, he said quietly. It doesn't send warnings, doesn't offer terms. It just waits. And when you come too close, it strikes. The young officer near the controls nodded, slowly. Sir, we've scanned the surface again, still nothing, no signals, no weapon systems. It's like it doesn't need them. Or, Doric said, eyes narrowing, it is the weapon. Before the officer could answer, the ship's lights blinked once, then again. And then, the walls began to hum, not with mechanical vibration, not from failing engines. It was something else, a sound, low and steady. A pulse, a voice without words. Everyone on board stopped moving. The hum passed through their bodies like a wave. It wasn't loud, but it was felt. In the bones, in the heart. One of the older crew members fell to his knees, holding his head. It's in my mind, he whispered. It's asking questions. Doric rose to his feet. What kind of questions? The man looked up, his eyes wide. It asked what we did to our own home, why we burned our skies, why we poisoned our water. It asked if we remember. The others stared at him in silence. Sir, the young officer said, voice shaky, we're not just being attacked, we're being judged. Outside the window, Earth seemed to shimmer, not physically, but intentionally, as if the planet knew it was being watched, as if it wanted to be seen. And then, from the far side of the planet, a shape began to rise. At first it looked like a mountain, But it kept rising, higher, larger, impossibly smooth. A structure that defied all known designs. No engines, no lights. Just a single object lifting into space as though pulled by thought alone. Dorek stepped, closer to the window. What is that? Scanners buzzed, trying to read the object. But the data made no sense. It was made of no known material. It gave off no energy signature. It seemed like a shadow, but solid. The officer reported, "We don't know. Our systems can't define it." Then the voice returned. Not in sound, not in words, but in thought. It came to every crew member at once, inside their minds. A single message. You were warned. And then the structure stopped rising. It floated above Earth, like a silent guardian or an executioner. Dorek turned toward the escape pods. "Begin evacuation. Get anyone left off this ship now." "But sir," the officer said, "we don't know if the pods will survive." "We don't know anything anymore," Dorek said. "But if we stay, we're already dead." The crew scrambled. Systems sparked. Alarms flashed red. The ship groaned, metal twisting under pressure. One by one, the remaining pods launched, tiny dots falling away from the broken ship, heading in random directions, and Earth watched. It did not shoot them down. It did not chase. It simply let them go. As if to say, remember this. Tell them what happened here. Inside his pod, Dorek strapped in and looked out one last time. Earth remained quiet, but he no longer saw a planet. He saw a warning. Survivors and stories. The escape pod jolted violently as it entered deep space. Dorek clutched the seat straps, eyes fixed on the shrinking image of Earth. His heart pounded. The great blue sphere now seemed like a giant eye, watching him, letting him go. He didn't understand why. The pod systems flickered to life. Life support stabilized. A small screen showed several other pods floating nearby. Not many. Maybe 8. Out of a fleet of thousands, only a handful had survived. Dorek tapped the comms. "This is Marshal Dorek. All pods. Respond." Crackling. Static answered. Then one voice. "This is Pod 3. We have 4 survivors. Minor injuries." Another answered. "Pod 7. 2 of us made it. No injuries. Scanners are clear. But we're not going back." Dorek closed his eyes. "No, we're not. Far behind. Them Earth returned to its quiet orbit. The strange black structure still hovered above it like a guardian or a warning. In the silence of space, the truth began to sink in. They had not been defeated by weapons. They had been allowed to survive. The Empire always believed in control, in strength, in taking what it wanted. It had destroyed worlds, enslaved species, erased cultures. But Earth had done nothing. No fleets, no soldiers. Just a message. You were warned. In his pod, Dorek opened the old data cube again. The one that held the forbidden records. He listened to one more log. A male voice this time, old and tired. "We went to Earth once, not to invade, just to observe. We thought we were alone on the surface, but then we saw it. A city that wasn't there the day before. Black towers, smooth walls, and inside, something looking back at us. Not human, not alien, just ancient. We ran, but we never forgot." The message ended, the file corrupted. Another mystery. Dorek whispered, "It's not just a planet, it's something more. A weapon, a machine, a guardian of its own kind." He didn't know, but he did know one thing. No one would believe him, unless he made them. He activated the pod's long-range beacon. It would take weeks, maybe months, to reach the nearest star system. But when it did, they would have proof. The recordings, the sensor logs, the words Earth had spoken in thought. Other pods did the same, scattering into the stars, each one carrying a piece of the story. And slowly across the galaxy, whispers began to spread, whispers of the Empire's loss, of a blue planet that never fired a shot, of a place where reality twisted, where fleets vanished and where the stars themselves went quiet. Some called it a trap, some called it a curse. But one word rose above all others: Earth. The Empire reacts. The message arrived weeks later, scrambled, broken, and full of static, but it still made it to Imperial Command. A small group of high-ranking leaders gathered in the dark chamber of the War Council. The room was lined with starscapes and glowing tactical maps. Cold silence filled the air as the audio from the escape pod was played. Earth is not what we thought. We were warned. It let us live, to carry the message. Do not return. Do not test it again. It was Dorek's voice. An admiral slammed his fist on the table. This is madness. Earth is a forgotten rock. How could it destroy an entire fleet without launching a single missile? Another general, older and quieter, leaned forward. I served with Dorek. He never feared anything. If he says Earth is dangerous, then we need to listen. But listen. To what? The admiral snapped. To ghost stories? We are the Empire. We bend the stars to our will. A diplomat stepped in, speaking calmly. We've heard rumors for years. Disappearing traders, silent probes, council restrictions. Now we have survivors and hard data. We should investigate carefully. The War Council argued for hours. Plans were drawn, maps updated, strategies considered, but fear had already taken root. For the first time in decades, the Empire felt small. Elsewhere, on the edge of Imperial territory, a small research station received the raw data from the pods. 2 scientists studied the energy patterns from the moment Earth attacked the fleet. It's not a weapon, one whispered. It's something deeper, like the planet thinks, or it's connected to something that does think. The other nodded. It didn't use force. It used fear. It broke their minds. More reports poured in. Other species, quiet ones from old parts of the galaxy, shared their own warnings. Stories of ships entering Earth's space and never coming back. Of strange voices. Of strange dreams. Of ships that returned, but with no crew. Across the galaxy, leaders began marking Earth, differently on maps. Not just a red zone, but a void. A place not to be visited, not to be touched. Back in deep space, Marshal Dorek drifted alone in his pod. The fuel was low, the air was thinning, but he had done what he came to do. He had warned them. In his final recording, he spoke clearly, voice strong despite the cold. If this message reaches you, know this. Earth doesn't fight. It doesn't chase. It waits. And when you enter its shadow, you don't face armies. You face something ancient, something patient, something that remembers everything we've ever done to each other and to our worlds. He looked at the camera one last time. Tell the Empire never again. What came before Earth slept far away, beyond the Empire's borders, in a place untouched by war or rule. An old race stirred. They were not conquerors. They were watchers, silent, hidden, long forgotten by time, in a vast chamber beneath a golden moon. A being with skin like stone stood before a glowing pool. The images within the water shimmered, the fall of the Empire's fleet, the rise of Earth's dark structure, and the whispers spreading through the stars. It has awakened, the being said. Another voice echoed from the shadows, ancient and calm. We sealed that world long ago, bound its core, drowned its memory, but still, it remembers. The first being nodded. And now the children of the stars have tested it and failed. Back in Imperial space, panic spread quietly. No new missions were sent toward Earth. New recruits were told nothing. Maps were changed. Archives were sealed. And still, the story slipped through cracks like water through stone. Outposts began to whisper of Earth like a myth, a planet that judges, a place no empire dares claim. In the shadows of those whispers, rebel groups began to grow. People who had suffered under the Empire's iron rule now believed in something stronger, something older. They called themselves the Remembered. They didn't want to conquer Earth. They wanted to understand it. Among them was a young pilot named Lyra. She had lost her brother in the fleet that attacked Earth. His pod had never been found, but she had read his final message, smuggled out by a rogue trader. Earth had spoken to him, and it had let him go. Lyra believed Earth held the answers to more than just the Empire's defeat. She believed it held the truth behind the galaxy's oldest silence. As her ship drifted toward the Forbidden Zone just outside Earth's claimed space, she whispered to the stars, "I don't come to fight." The black structure above Earth still floated silently, but the moment Lyra's ship crossed the edge of deep orbit, her systems froze. Her screens went black, and the voice came again, not in words, not in sound, but in thought. One returns with no weapon, no greed, only questions. Let her see. Her ship did not crash. It was guided. Slowly, carefully, it descended toward the surface. And for the first time in 100 years, someone stepped foot on Earth. The memory beneath Earth Lyra stepped out of her ship onto Earth's surface. The air was clean. The sky above her was a deep blue, the clouds soft and quiet. There were no signs of cities, no movement, no noise, only stillness. She walked across a field of soft grass. Birds flew high in the sky, untouched by fear. A breeze moved past her almost like a whisper brushing her cheek. Then ahead of her the ground opened without sound, without force. A perfect circle of earth sank into the ground, revealing a dark staircase glowing with faint light. Lyra hesitated, then stepped inside. The deeper she went, the quieter everything became. Not silent in a normal way, but heavy, like even her thoughts had to whisper. At the bottom, she reached a great hall. It stretched far in every direction. Floating shapes hovered in the air, triangles, spheres, symbols from no language she knew. And at the center stood a figure. It wasn't human. It wasn't alien. It was light and shadow, shape and formlessness, old as time and still as stone. It did not speak, but she understood. Images filled her mind. Not memories, histories. A time before any empire, before any species left their first world. Earth had been a cradle of something ancient, a place that grew life, then protected it. Until one day that life turned violent, so Earth slept, it let the stars burn and fall. It let galaxies rise and die. It waited, and when war returned to its doorstep, it acted not out of anger, but balance. It remembered what the others had forgotten. Lyra dropped to her knees. Tears filled her eyes. "You're not a weapon," she whispered. "You're a guardian." The figure pulsed once with light, and she knew. Earth had been awake longer than they'd imagined. It had watched every rise, every fall. And it had only one goal, to make sure the galaxy never forgot again. Above, in orbit, the dark structure slowly folded back into the clouds. No explosions, no warnings. Earth had said what it needed to say. The message had been sent. The Empire had been humbled, and now a single voice would carry the truth. Lyra returned to the stars, not as a soldier, not as a scout, but as a messenger. Across systems, species, and stars, her story would spread. They said Earth was a trap, but Earth was the test, and almost no one passed.